Inside a quiet Texas home, a teenage boy picked up the phone. His hands were shaking. His breathing was heavy. His voice, flat, emotionless. "I'm gonna kill someone, or myself." The dispatcher on the other end sat up straight. Calls like these weren't uncommon, but something about this one felt wrong. The boy didn't sound drunk. He didn't sound high. He just sounded done. The dispatcher tried to keep him talking, but before she could ask another question, the call cut off. Silence. A protocol check. She dialed the number back. A woman answered. Come. Maybe a little confused. "Ma'am, we just received a call from this number." A young male said he was going to hurt someone or himself. A brief pause. Then a light chuckle. "Oh, I don't know what that was about. My son? He's fine. Maybe just being dramatic." The dispatcher hesitated. Something wasn't right. She pressed for more. "Are you sure, ma'am? Does he have access to weapons? Is there any danger in the home?" The mother sighed. "Look, I appreciate your concern, but we're fine. He's just had a rough night." And just like that, the call was over. The dispatcher noted the incident, but without any immediate signs of danger, there was nothing else to be done. Just another call. Just another restless night. But inside that house, things were not fine. The boy sat alone in the dark, gripping something cold, something heavy. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing with thoughts he couldn't control. He could still hear them, the laughter, the whispers. They didn't understand. They never did. And soon, they would regret it. Welcome to True Crime Stories videos. I welcome you, my viewers, and most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing you daily told and untold true crime stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. It was just another night. Nothing unusual. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that settles in after dinner when everyone is winding down. The mother was cleaning up in the kitchen. The older sister was on her phone, lost in whatever was on the screen. The younger sister had gone upstairs. And then there was him. He sat in the living room staring at the floor. At first, everything seemed fine. But then, something changed. His breathing got heavy. His hands started shaking. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it was trying to break out of his chest. His sister noticed first. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, barely looking up from her phone. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in on him. His head ached. His skin felt hot. Their mother walked over and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, you okay?" He flinched. His mind was spinning. He didn't know what was happening, only that something felt wrong. His sister snickered. "Oh wow, look at him. He's freaking out." The other sister laughed too. Even their mother chuckled softly. "Relax, sweetheart. You're fine. Fine." The word echoed in his head, over and over. But he wasn't fine. The laughter didn't stop. It only got louder. Not in the room, but in his mind. Twisting. Distorting. They were laughing at him. Not with him. At him. His breathing slowed. His hands curled into fists. His heart was still racing, but now it wasn't fear that fueled it. It was something else. They didn't understand. They never did. But soon, they would. The house was still filled with laughter. Soft. Casual. Like everything was normal. But inside him, something had snapped. He stood up slowly, his head still spinning. His heart still pounding. The voices in his mind wouldn't stop. "They think I'm a joke." His mother had already turned away, heading back to the kitchen. His sister was still staring at her phone, shaking her head, smirking. He walked down the hall. His feet were steady now. His mind was set. And then he reached for it. Cold metal. Heavy in his hands. The weight of a decision he could never take back. He stepped back into the living room. His mother had her back turned, wiping the counter. His sister was still scrolling. No one noticed him standing there. Not until they heard the click. The mother turned first. Her eyes widened. Her lips parted like she was about to speak. Bang. A sharp crack tore through the air. Then another. And another. The mother staggered forward, gasping. She reached for the counter, but her legs gave out. She hit the floor. The older sister froze. The phone slipped from her hands, landing with a dull thud on the carpet. Her mouth opened in shock, but before she could scream, bang. The force knocked her back. Pain exploded through her chest. Her hands clutched at the wound, red spilling between her fingers. Another shot. Then another. She collapsed. And then silence. The boy stood there, breathing heavily. The gun trembled slightly in his hands. His heart pounded, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something else. Then movement. A shadow in the hallway. The younger sister. She had heard it all. She had seen it. Her eyes locked onto his. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just stood there, frozen. His grip tightened on the gun. His finger hovered over the trigger. But he didn't pull it. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then he turned, dropped the gun, and ran. The house was silent now. The laughter was gone. The screams had never even come. Blood stained the floor. Shallow breaths filled the air, weak, struggling. Life slipping away. Outside, sirens screamed through the night. Help was on the way. But they had no idea what was waiting for them. The first to arrive were the firefighters. They pulled up quickly, expecting maybe a medical emergency, maybe a fire. But nothing could have prepared them for what they saw. A boy, standing in the driveway, a gun in his hand. They barely had time to react before he raised it, pointing it straight at them. For a second, no one moved. No one breathed. And then he spoke. "I just killed someone." The words were flat, cold, like he was stating a fact, not confessing to something unthinkable. One of the firefighters raised his hands slowly, trying to keep the situation calm. "Hey, son, let's just take it easy, okay?" The boy didn't answer. His fingers twitched on the gun. For a second it felt like this was it. Like another tragedy was about to unfold. Then, suddenly he dropped the gun. It clattered onto the pavement, the sound sharp against the quiet night. And just like that, he turned and ran. The firefighters stood frozen for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. Then chaos erupted. Police had just pulled up. They saw the boy take off, disappearing into the shadows. Suspect on the run. Officers jumped from their cars, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The chase was on. The boy ran fast, cutting through yards, leaping over fences. He was small, quick. But fear makes mistakes. He stumbled. A second too long. Heavy footsteps closed in behind him. A voice shouted, "Get down!" Then a tackle. The pavement was cold. The weight of officers pinned him down. A sharp, commanding voice echoed in his ears. "You're under arrest." It was over. Or at least, it should have been. Because back at the house, a mother and daughter were still fighting for their lives. And time was running out. The boy sat in the back of the police car, hands cuffed, his head resting against the window. His face was blank, empty. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. Officers whispered among themselves. He said he ate something. Something made him snap. It didn't take long to find out what. Inside the house, scattered on the counter, was the answer. A package. Bright colors. Innocent looking. THC edibles. The kind that promise relaxation. The kind that are supposed to make you feel calm. Happy. But for him, it did the opposite. Doctors and police confirmed it. He had eaten a lot. More than he should have. And it sent his mind into a place he couldn't escape from. A place where fear turned into rage. Where laughter sounded like insults. Where family turned into enemies. But was it really just the edibles? Experts say THC affects young minds differently. The brain is still growing, still learning how to handle emotions. And too much can twist reality, confuse thoughts, make the world feel like it's closing in. Some people panic. Some shut down. And some explode. But was this really just a bad reaction? Or was something already broken inside him before that night? Had he been carrying anger long before this? Had something been building up, waiting for a moment like this to break free? Police had their answers. He had taken too much. His mind couldn't handle it. But his family, they were the ones who paid the price. And now there was no going back. The house that was once filled with warmth, with laughter, was now cold. Silent. The floor was stained red. The air smelled of metal and smoke. The walls held the echoes of what had just happened. First responders rushed inside, their voices urgent, their movements fast. "We've got a pulse." The mother lay motionless, her breathing shallow. Her body was broken, but she was still fighting. The 17-year-old sister wasn't moving either. Blood soaked through her clothes. A medic pressed their fingers against her neck. A long pause. Then, a sign of life. "She's alive. Let's move." Sirens blared as ambulances sped into the night. Every second mattered. Back at the police station, the boy sat alone in a room, hands still cuffed. His face was pale. His eyes distant. He had been taken to the hospital for observation. They said it was standard protocol. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. They weren't just checking his health. They were trying to understand why. Why a 15-year-old would do this. Why he pulled the trigger, again and again, on the people who loved him the most. Outside, reporters gathered. Neighbors whispered. People searched for answers. Then came the charges. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Aggravated assault of a family member. Big words. Heavy words. The kind that don't just go away. But no one could answer the real question, the one that would haunt everyone who heard this story. Could this have been prevented? Was it the edibles? Was it something deeper, something that had been building for months, maybe even years? Did anyone see the warning signs? Or did they all just look away? One thing was certain. 2 lives were hanging by a thread. And no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same. The boy was in custody. His mother and sister were clinging to life. The story had made the news. But the questions? They were just beginning. Who gave him the edibles? Someone had to know. Someone had to have bought them, passed them around, left them in reach. And the gun? Where did he get it? Was it locked away? Was it meant for protection? Or had it always been sitting there, waiting for the wrong hands to pick it up? And then, one question that no one could shake. Why did he spare his 16-year-old sister? She had been right there. She had seen it all. But he didn't pull the trigger. Did he freeze? Did something stop him at the last second? Or was there something deeper? Something only he understood? No one knew the answers. Maybe no one ever would. But one thing was certain. This wasn't just about one bad night. It was about how easy it is for something like this to happen. A teenager just 15 years old with access to a gun. A substance that altered his mind, made him see the world differently, just for a moment. And in that moment, everything changed. His family may never recover. He may never be free again. And the chilling truth? Somewhere out there, in another home, another neighborhood, another city, this could happen again. Because it wasn't just a bad reaction. It was a warning. A moment of anger. A split-second decision. And lives shattered forever.